This is quite an interesting sign in the Japanese restaurant. The sign for a woman is above the toilet that you sit on. The sign for a man, otoko, is over, or dan of course, if you want me, onyomi, is over the different shaped one for standing up next to. So, in other words, if you need to sit down and have a poo, you'll basically have to sit under the female sign, which is not so fantastic, wouldn't mind. And it's Valentine's Day, so there's a heart on the wall. Okay, so we're in Poznan today, which I haven't filmed before. I didn't used to film in those days when I lived here in the lovely city of Poznan. I've just been at a meeting here today. This is the lovely old town. Which I've just sort of stumbled into from the Vodna side. Not entirely sure which end of it the restaurant that I used to like to go to is. That might be it, Retroshova here. Yeah, I think that's the one. That's obviously the town hall. I'm sure they've been pulling this across the cobbles, but it kind of makes a bit of a loud noise in the background of the film, which is irritating. So for a while we walk through this and I show you the sights of Poznan Old Town. We have shown Poznan once, but it was even, I'm sure I've even shown you this square, but it was dark, it was at night. I showed you the goats on one of these buildings which Trikayo show, yeah, the causeway. I have actually shown that one on this channel, but it was night and you couldn't see the beauty of it really in the way that you can during the day. So let's do it again. Obviously Germanic style architecture, as you can see, largely because of the fact that this was built when Poznan was partly built during times, and there's been more than one time when Poznan's been under German rule. And therefore that lets itself show here as it does in other cities in this country, such as Wrocław, etc. Not quite sure what that key represents there that small fat child has. I knew a few more of these things once, but Poznan has a lot of its own symbols. You can see some of the nice interesting murals on the walls and the gables around the tops of the buildings. I can't see right now where that building is with the two goats that hit each other. I'd have to look about for a bit, and actually I don't have all that much time because I've got to get back to the jolly old petrol station, the jolly old railway station, because I've got a train. I've already got the ticket in my pocket and don't want that money to go to waste, so I have to get myself on the way, as it were, so that's alright. And get to that good old railway station. But still, there we go, a little bit of Poznan just to remind you of, and myself of course, is what it looks like. Used to live here, and Sophie was actually born in Poznan, so she is actually a Poznan person, or a Poznanka. That's not the real name for them, of course. It's just my playful term for ladies from Poznan. So she is a born and bred Poznan person, even though both of her parents are not Polish. And that gives us a certain affinity to Poznan, as I think I've said before. So it's always nice to be here. And I will pull the case now because I haven't got the jolly old cobbles so much here. It's more of a normal paving arrangement. There is a sound, but not quite such a loud, bumpy one. And there we have on this Ludgardi street some nice murals up there. Up ahead we've got the Douglas shop, which, when it first came to this country, I went to the opening of the first shop, and the head of Douglas was there, and he said it's not called Douglas, it's an English word, okay, or a Scottish one, but which we've taken, but we say Douglas. So there you go. That was a piece of like German imperialism, with a German saying, well, we take a word of British or Scottish and we'll pronounce it how we like, which I suppose they can do. We do, after all, pronounce things like Welsh merts, as though it was the paint from a nasty welt rather than Weltschmerz sometimes. Some people say Weltschmerz in the middle of English, but it's not easy to say an English sentence and in the middle say something like Schadenfreude or Weltschmerz in the middle of an English sentence with a typical German style accent, so most people don't do that. Most people just go Weltschmerz, Schadenfreude, like that in the middle of an English sentence. So if the Germans want to say Douglas for what is obviously Douglas, then I suppose they've got every right to do it. It's their shop. But even though they were adamant about how it should be pronounced at the very beginning and gave a little lecture on it to everybody who turned up for the opening in Warsaw on Nowy Świat, I've noticed that they have given up on that, and that when they talk about it on the TV now, the adverts or the adverts on TV or radio about it simply say Douglas. They appear to have basically accepted that in Poland English is so broadly known that Poles don't appreciate being brought into confusion about the pronunciation of English words too much. So they've kind of given up on it and gone with the flow, which is fair enough. And so usually even people that work for Douglas will be calling it Douglas these days. Whether there's ever been an official communication to the effect that the pronunciation of the name has changed, I know not. There's one of Poznan's green trams. Oh, Święty Wojciech. So that guy there has got his can out. He's got one Nordic walking pole, which is supposed to be a pretend blind stick. It looks as though he's collecting money for his other Nordic walking pole. And all it does is give the impression that people who are disabled or blind in this country aren't looked after, and therefore need to go out with a begging bowl, which is not actually the case, of course. but some people still do believe it, so they're willing to go ahead and fill his bowl. I don't really believe that the majority of these beggars are telling true stories about themselves or making true representations about themselves. So through that building, 1541. That's the house with M. Pick in it, which is the Polish equivalent of W.H. Smith's, if you like, or Waterstones. Which I nearly got involved in privatising many years ago, but didn't quite make it. I was in the running, but I think somebody else got it. Profilingua, specialist of tongues. Expander. That's a